Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Facilities Management Exchange. This episode is actually quite interesting because we're going to be speaking to just one person today. We wanted to do a different series within the series of the Facilities Management Exchange to give people a real in-depth insight of what leadership looks like across the facilities management sphere. This is the first time that we're recording a leadership episode as part of this series. So I'm very, very pleased and proud to have joining me today Andrew Hulbert, who is the chair of the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management and also founder of Pareto FM. How you doing, Andy?
That's right. Thank you so much. So I'm the first guest you've had one-on-one.
Well, not the first we've had one-on-one.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to lie to you.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But the first person across the leadership series.
Wow, fantastic.
Which is something we're very proud to bring to our audience.
I better come up with some good leadership advice then, if that's
you
what we're
better
talking
do.
about.
Well,
That's what we're talking about today.
We've had a bit of a chat before the podcast. So I'm sure
We've been here for an hour.
I know, we've learned everything apart from the shoe size, Andy, which is good.
Yes.
So how's your day been?
Amazing. I happened to be lecturing at Brooks today. So
really?
I was, Brooks have a real estate course there. So I was lecturing to third year real estate students.
Yeah.
And amazing, right? They're all 21. They've got it all to learn. Yeah. I had to laugh. I love to ask questions like you'd only know about in business. Yeah. So you got them all there. They've been studying 3 years. I said, you know what NPS is? They're like, no. I was like, cool. Do you know what EDI means? Or do you know what ESG means? They have absolutely no idea.
Really?
You know, there's a long way to go. The lecture I did today was about the S in ESG, so doing social good as part of business. So they were learning about it. But what's brilliant about that group is they know about facilities management.
Yes.
You know, they're real estate students. They're going to go and be some of our clients in the future when we're working for managing agents and things. But I love it. And actually, the thing that we got talking about, I love to ask like difficult questions, but how often do they want to be in the office? They're saying 2 to 3 days a week.
Really?
These 21-year-olds. And we were just talking about it before, but these are the Gen Zs that we're talking to now.
Yep.
The Generation Alphas that are going to come in after these kids, they're not going to have been impacted by COVID in the same way. And they're probably going to want to work 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And by the way, for anyone listening who wants some advice about how to get ahead in entrepreneurship or in business, go to the office 5 days a week.
Yes.
Go to the networking event, write the articles, do the awards, be present, be part of presenteeism, which we know is really important in a management perspective, as tale as old as time, because a lot of the generation isn't going to do that. And actually, so like no disrespect to anybody who only wants to work 2 or 3 days a week in the office, but 5 days a week in the office could be a really powerful place to be, especially with just sort of getting to know people. And I did a lot of networking in my time. I still do now.
Same.
I still think the most valuable time to network, say you've gone to an event and it's 8 o'clock, you're tired, everyone's tired, you're just about to go home.
Yeah.
You walk out with somebody else. And in that sort of 4 or 5 minute walk where you drop your guard a bit, maybe you've had some wine, you're going to get on the bus or the tube or the taxi or whatever. I just think that's a real rich time to chat to somebody because you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about getting home, you're thinking about what tomorrow looks like, what annoying emails have come through while you've been focused on what's happening there. So like, I just think there is so much power, and there is 100 years of management that we know about, and actually being present and being with people and creating real connections with each other is one of the most powerful things.
It's very true that, you know, like, I mean, we have this discussion quite a bit on the podcast around flexible working and people returning to the office and things like that. And what you tend to find, like yours is a voice that isn't heard as much anymore, Andrew. I'm being completely honest with you there.
Please.
You know, probably 80% of the people we have this conversation with will be flexible working's great, it gives people choices and things like that. Yeah. But your statement's very powerful because what you're fundamentally saying there is that, yes, you can have a flexible work arrangement. However, you're probably not going to meet the level of success that you want to because you're not present. You're not in the office on a daily basis. Is that accurate?
It is, but also each version of success for each of us is very different. Yeah. So actually, like, I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but if you're really young and hungry, well, not even, if you're just hungry and you want to try and grow something and meet more people, you have to be out there. You have to be out there. And like, you will not network at home. And like, you know, we all went through the COVID situation together when we were working in this sector. And actually, I was having to sell contracts worth millions of pounds on camera. We never got to meet these people.
I know, it was weird, wasn't it?
It was.
It was
but
weird.
the connection wasn't as genuine. And I just think to like Zoom calls and stuff, You go on maybe 30 seconds after it started, so you don't sit in the awkward waiting period where you're waiting for people to come on.
Yeah.
You do the call finishes, you go.
Yes.
You're all scrambling who can turn it off first so that no one's awkwardly left on there.
Yeah.
Xerox, back in the 1980s, what they told us, and there's a white paper on this by the author called ORR, the best way to transfer knowledge between two people, and they had engineers at Xerox, was at the water cooler when they're in the office.
Yeah.
So all the engineers went around fixing the printers. They came back to the office. They chatted to each other in the queue. They had a drink of water. They're having a coffee or whatever. Xerox could not create a program that transferred information better between each other than that chat there.
Really?
Now, what worries me about people being at home all the time is that incidental chat of
Doesn't
just
happen.
walking to the toilet, going to get the door, I don't know, making a coffee. It doesn't happen.
No.
And I genuinely think there is now competitive advantage to going back and being in the room.
I don't disagree.
And when I was at university, I studied Japanese working culture from like 90s.
Yeah.
And actually, even in Japanese culture then, they were talking about leave a coat on the back of your chair. So even if you're not in the office, somebody knows that you're there. And that whole presenteeism thing was real. And like, I mean, this is outdated now because I was studying in like late 90s is the era I was studying.
Yeah.
But if you fell asleep at your desk, that was considered a sign of you were brilliant. You were working really hard.
Really?
And you were committing yourself so much to the business that you fell asleep at your desk.
Really?
Now, there's massive generalizations in all of that, but that's the sort of theory around it. And I just think that economies are circular.
Yes.
And actually, with now, say, a big chunk of people being at home again, go back to the office, be there.
Yeah.
And I always used to love Friday drinks, right? It was always
Yes.
Friday drink. But now there's no Friday drink.
No, it's Thursday.
Thursday drinks.
Yeah.
Because occupation levels, broadly across on a Friday are like less than 15%.
Yeah.
And I also think for those that drink alcohol, if you go and get pissed on a Thursday night and you're a bit hungover on Friday, well, you've probably got an extra hour and a half in bed because
Yeah.
you're not having to commute to the office.
Of course.
And that sort of changes people's mindset on it. So, but
No, I
yeah,
agree.
if I was starting again, and I get as an entrepreneur, I get asked a lot, if you were starting again, what would you do?
Yeah.
My single word is network.
Yeah.
I'd be out there and I'd
Well, I'll
be
tell
doing
you what, Andy, tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about your history first.
it. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so tell us
Yeah.
about how obviously we know that you went to university,
Yeah.
but tell us about how you started
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
industry,
Okay.
how Pareto became to become Pareto,
Yeah.
what was the journey like there, and
Yeah.
what your exit was like fundamentally.
Well, I mean, look, how long you got? But I'll give you the short version.
Give us the abridged version. Yeah.
I went to university and I studied business.
Yeah.
And in the second year of university, I went to the Careers Advisory Service, and they said you need to get some work experience over the summer. This is 2007 that I'm talking now.
Yeah.
And I went through a scheme run by Shell, their oil company. It was called Shell Step, and it connected second year undergraduates with small businesses in industry.
Yeah.
And I got connected through there, and I got connected to a company called Rollright. And Rollright at the time was a £6 million little FM business. And Charlie Sinton and Clive Granger took me on a journey with those guys. I went and did 8 weeks with them, and I did a competitor analysis. And what I learned in that summer was the industry was massive.
Yep.
It was full of massive businesses that didn't particularly do very well in terms of what they were doing to the customer in terms of services.
Yep.
And it was just this behemoth that actually I thought was there for the taking in terms of could be improved. So I did my 8 weeks. I loved it. I love facilities management. I am the one that came into this sector because I wanted to come in. I didn't fall into
There's
it.
not many, Andy.
I
There's
know,
not many,
there's
to be
very
fair.
few that do it. Anyway, finished my degree, got my first, went back and called up Charlie and said, hey, I'm available to work. And he took me on.
Right,
and I
okay.
started on, I think, 17,000, 18,000
Yeah,
a year
yeah.
as an account manager. And then they taught me all about commercials and operations and finance. And by the time I knew it, I was 24. I was ops director. I had 250 staff.
That's not bad, is it?
No, I was working hard, but
gotcha.
I was self-delivering cleaning, engineering, catering, security, self-delivering all those things by
That's
the
a
age of
lot.
24.
Yeah.
And a team of 250. That was hard work. But the working class background that I'm from and like council estate origins, it was just about hard work is what we did.
Yeah, of course.
And if they wanted to give you more responsibility, I didn't ask for more money. I just sort of like, I'll do it. I'll do it. So I
the
got
lowest paid ops director.
Yeah,
in
no,
the
I know.
industry.
It's true. It's true.
No, but it's true. Like when,
Yeah.
because I'm very similar. I'm from
Yeah.
that background, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm a grafter off the
Yes.
back of it. Like I will work and
Yes.
work and work.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
But similar thing. Like as I was going through my career, if people said, "Oh, can you do this? Can you do this?" You
Yeah.
go, "Yeah."
They say give work to busy people, and I was the busy people because they knew that even if I was working at 110% already, if they gave me something else, I would also get it done.
Yeah.
I'm a real interesting one. I am both the most driven, hardworking person you will meet, and I'm also the laziest person you will meet. So depending on if I have 500 things to do, I'll do 498 of them.
Yeah.
If I have one thing to do, I'll do nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like a real extreme between the two.
Yeah.
So Rollright grew to about 12 million, and then Rollright got sold to Bilfinger, which is now Apleona these days. So Bilfinger did an entire acquisition. They bought Europa and GVA at the same time, and then they merged all those together.
Wow.
So I was part of that sort of merger of everything. I was still very young and working it all out. I did 2 years with Bilfinger, and actually, to be honest, I didn't enjoy the big business mentality. We'd gone from being a £10 million business to an £8 billion business overnight.
It is different,
It is, and it was a construction-based business, and it was a European business. So no slight on the business at all. It was a good business, but for me personally, it just wasn't the environment that I was thriving in.
No.
I think when I was 24 and I was effectively working for the board and I was looking after everything, I felt great in that because I could make decisions, and generally they would go with what I asked them to do. If I wanted to sponsor an event, we could, or write an article, we could. I was in charge.
Right.
So I did 2 years as a director within Bilfinger. And then one day I woke up and I was 27 years old, and I'd always wanted to run my own business from the age of about 15. That was just what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I could see that this sector that I'd been in for 6 odd years now, the bigger companies were getting bigger.
Yeah.
The acquisitions were getting more. And I just felt there was room for a smaller business that could go and target high-end customers who really wanted something special and something different.
Yeah.
But these big businesses, respect to them, but big businesses couldn't adapt themselves to do what the customers wanted. And I'm talking massive, massive brands. Like go on your phone and look at the brands on your phone. I'm talking those ones.
Yeah.
But the big businesses, as great as they are, were not able to adapt themselves to what those organisations always wanted.
No, because usually those organisations have to adapt to the big brand because they're geared and set up in such a way that they it's that old adage, isn't it? You know, that oil tanker.
Yes.
How long does it take an oil tanker to turn round? Probably about 15-mile swing. You know, it's that kind of scenario, isn't it?
Yeah. But the whole point was that actually I thought that the sector had got it wrong from a service provider perspective, because big businesses would go to a customer and say, if you want to work with us, customer, you need to do it our way.
Yeah.
This CAFAM system, this process, this finance process, this HR. I was like, no. Let's ask the customer what they want.
Yeah.
Really simple. Ask the customer what they want. Let's build something that works for them.
Yeah.
Now, that's okay, but you need a business that's so flexible that it can adapt itself around what the customer needs. And as Pareto got bigger and bigger, it becomes much more difficult to be totally adaptive, because when you get to, say, 50 million turnover, there's only so much adaptation you can do at that stage.
Which is very true.
You start to understand what the big boys were worried about in terms of when they're doing it. So, the story is true. So when I was 27, I handed my notice in.
Yeah.
I literally started from my bedroom with a laptop. I had nothing. I had no sponsors, no clients, no investment, no processes, no risk assessments, no bank. I literally had nothing.
What was the first thing you did, Andrew?
The first thing I did was called an old customer that I knew. So you were talking about Black Book, right? I went to the Black Book, thought I'll call number one on the Black Book.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I love the concept of what you're discussing, but I've just taken 3 weeks off to redecorate my kitchen, so you'll have to speak to me when I come back. That's true.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And actually, so the first thing I did was I go, right, yes, I started from scratch, but for 6 years, I've been networking my ass off.
Yeah.
And actually, I had built a personal brand before personal brand was a thing. I didn't know that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
But at that stage, I'd written like 150 articles in the press across the 5 or 6 magazines.
Yeah.
I'd won like nearly 10 awards, I think, at that stage.
Wow.
And I'd been to every networking event that you possibly could do. So IWFM, my journey started right at the beginning with the Rising FMs. I was part of the group there. As the kids now are on Risings and they're moving through.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So yes, I'd been working hard, and yes, it was all very lucky that we grew quickly from the start. But for 6 years, while someone else was paying my salary, I went out there and I networked. Yeah. And I had a network to start from. So the fact I even had someone to ring on day one was the whole point. Now, luckily for me, what happened on that same day, an old contact I had from networking, they were the head of FM somewhere. They just left their role, left a vacancy in the head of FM. They didn't want to backfill it. So he very kindly put me in touch with the finance director of that organisation, client client side and said, have a chat with Andrew. He's just started up. You should bring him in for consultancy services.
Right.
So literally on the afternoon I started the business, I won my first contract.
Wow.
Which was the some consultancy services. And I didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Literally, it all happened completely from there. Now, what was beautiful about that was it was based in London. It was 5 half days a week, and it was in Waterloo. So that meant 5 half days a week, someone was paying me to go to Waterloo. Yeah. I had an office. Yeah. I had a location. I had somewhere I could collect post and to send post from. I had a reception team. I had email. It was amazing. And it was like, that was literally the first day. Wow. And then from that moment, we have grown every single year for 10 years straight. And Pareto, the concept of Pareto was to be a brilliant business that could adapt itself to work in the way the customer wanted to have an amazing social heart to look after its people. Yeah. My mum worked in Sainsbury's for 30 years and my dad was in a factory for 46 years when I grew up, right? So low wage income workers.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They worked incredibly hard, amazing people, proper working class mentality, but they didn't always get treated very well. No. And actually, I sort of had this chip on my shoulder that if anybody in my business was towards lower wages, I wanted to treat them really well. Yeah. I mean, real basics, like say you get paid wrong on payday, that same day it gets rectified and the money goes in your account. Yeah. If your expenses are due on the 10th, they get paid on the 10th. Real basic stuff. Yeah. Which actually in a lot of bigger businesses, doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't always happen.
And there was a scenario I was aware of where if your pay was wrong, the business would then pay you the next month with the correction. Now, I can't wait till the next month.
No, of course not.
And actually, so is that sort of ambition for me. And it was really the rise in ESG at the time. Yeah. So being socially good and being environmentally good was also incredibly important as well. Yeah. So I think that's really where Pareto came from. And look, we went on this amazing journey. Over a 10-year period, we grew from nothing, literally from my bedroom. Yeah. We got to about 50 million turnover, 500 odd staff. And we went through an investment event in 2023. Yep. So we went to private equity. Yep. That created wealth for lots of people within the team, which was amazing. Yeah. And actually, many people in FM will know my team, but I hired a team of about 15 people. Yeah. They were like the C-suite and the senior team that ran the organization for us. And in that team of 15, I didn't lose a single person in 10 years.
Oh, brilliant.
Hired them all personally, was part of their journey. And we really affectionately referred to Pareto as the home of the broken. Yeah. So if someone had wronged you in some way, you came to my team in Pareto. And I was the most broken of them all, by the way.
Right, okay.
And we had this amazing camaraderie that was just so deep. And all of the people who are in facilities management watching this now, FM isn't a 9-to-5 job. No. FM is a 24/7 job. And if you're in cleaning in particular, that's a 3:30 a.m. that the calls are coming in because things are going wrong, they can't get in, there's an issue, whatever. So actually for us, I expected that team that if I called them on a weekend, they'd answer the phone. Yeah. We didn't have a central help desk overnight. It was our team that would answer the phone. Yeah, because if a customer was in distress, we wanted to make it work and work it out for them. So I think for me, that was the concept of Pareto. It was about being this brilliant business. And in the end, we delivered 150 different social initiatives, right from being one of the first businesses to be carbon neutral on scope 1 and 2, to being the first company that will be net zero in 2027, to things like planting wild gardens and forests and raising money for charity and giving away interest-free loans to our staff. We just did amazing things. And we then managed to build up a customer base that was real high-value tech businesses, real high-profile businesses that wanted to come on the journey. And they supported us. And I think my 4th or 5th customer was Twitter back in 2016.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and Twitter was an amazing business to us. And on our 5th birthday, we had a big party. Twitter hosted us for free. Oh, no, this is true. We had 150 people in Twitter's office in Piccadilly. Wow. And they gave us, all the food was free. They made us our own cocktail, the Pareto Blue, they called it.
Pareto Blue.
Pareto Blue cocktail, all true.
Oh, sounds good.
We just had this amazing. My mum and dad were the people of honour that turned up at this thing. My wife and a guy called Bill, who was my right-hand man, they got a cake made of my head.
Oh, lovely.
And they all took it in turns to stab me through the eye. Because it'd been a fucking hard 5 years. It'd been a hard 5 years. And, so it was beautiful. And that was it. But businesses grow. And as you get bigger, business is hard, and all of the flexibility and the people management, they change, and the industry changes, and the sector changes, and Trump comes in and starts to roll back all the ESG and EDI stuff, and it makes investment challenging and all those different things. So, so that's the Pareto journey.
With regards to that, I asked this question once. How do you think the UK marketplace will react to the fact that Trump is sort of wheeling back these practices and these processes? Because obviously, what tends to, when when America catches a cold, we tend to have a sneeze, you know.
Yeah.
Do you think that will impact us over here? Because obviously there's a lot of American businesses that work here, you know, and there's a lot of changes in those businesses as direct result. What's your take on that? And I know it's a bit of a segue, Andrew, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
No, I've seen it. It's real. So the biggest challenge is like wording and phraseology. The UK, the challenge the UK has is a lot of investment that comes to the UK is from American funds.
Yep.
So, and American funds want to control where their money goes and what the rhetoric is that goes with that money. So it's even down to like not using the words ESG or environmental social governance, not using words around LGBT plus, and about removing all of that and just calling it sustainability.
Yeah.
Almost going back to corporate social responsibility like we used to have. Doesn't mean anything, right? CSR.
No.
I've seen it. I've seen websites change. I've seen companies change their branding. I've seen policies change, not within Pareto, but wider within the sector. And that's been very difficult. And actually, you know, I'm a massive like EDI advocate, and I've been part of the IWFM EDI group for a long time. I was part of the formation of it. And actually talking to people within that group and understanding what these changes mean is very difficult. And like trans rights in particular, just negative. And now we go into this situation, you know, where there's war with the Middle East and all the bad stories that will come out with that.
Well, that's going to be very challenging for us, I think, over the next several weeks and months, you know. It's,
I think it's real. And unfortunately, and then when like Farage comes in and starts adding additional rhetoric to that from a UK perspective, but I even look to like my own parents. So my mum in particular, proper working class background, Labour voter her whole life, right? Yeah. Her father, so my grandfather was big Labour voter, you know, all that sort of stuff. She would consider reform now. My mum. And it gets to people like that.
Well, the issue is, I mean, I'm northern, as you can probably tell, you know what I mean? I come from, you know, a town that would vote Labour and things like that. But Labour, unfortunately, has horrendously let down what are the working classes. And let's not forget about one thing, you know, the working classes make up the majority of this country. A lot of people think that London is the beating heart of the UK, but the reality is the rest of the country is working class individuals that get up at 5 a.m. and so on and so forth. And Labour have just gone, I think, it used to be a party for people. That's how I would describe it. It used to be, and I'm no reform. I'm a common sense person. Me, I've always kind of sat on the fence, and you know, I'm not left right. Like, if it makes sense to me, I'll vote for it, and if it's good for my children, does that make sense?
Well, it sounds like a good sales answer to me.
Yeah, but it's true. It is fundamentally true. No, if it's good for my family and my children, I'll vote for it. But they've let down such a large subsection of society that I don't see there being any way coming back. So I can understand why your mother in particular would kind of, because they remember, you know, if you're of a certain age, let's say you're in your 60s, your 70s, you know, you grew up in the 70s and 80s, you know, which was a very different time period. Houses were cheap, fuel was cheap, food was cheap, everything was cheap. Now we live in a world where everything's expensive, and especially if you're going on a pension, you know, it's crackers, isn't it? Like, how do you fix it? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I had to laugh because my mum was also a Brexit voter, and so like I recently I went to Norway and back. So you get to Norway, we can't go in the EU queue, of course, because we're now in the non-EU queue. Fine. Yeah. Come back and it took me ages to get through with my family, with my kids. Yeah. Come back. And now all of the Europeans are also in the same queue that I'm in. And I'm like, Mum, this is what you voted for. I now have to queue to get out of the country and to get back in again. Yeah. I am not a Brexit voter and I'm completely against it. But actually, like, this is the worst of both worlds. And like, you thought you were going to get 325 million back to the NHS because it was on the side of a bus. You know, it was that sort of scenario. But I'm actually not deeply ingrained into politics. And I don't know where my vote would be today in terms of all those things. But I know like people like my wife, she has been like Lib Dem and Green all the way through. Yeah. So the fact that the Green woman got in, the woman plumber who got in recently and, you know, beat reform and everything, that was like an enormous celebration amongst that community. So.
Crazy though, isn't it, in terms of the change? Yeah. Because it used to be Conservatives and Labour. And now, you know, it looks like the next election is going to be Greens and Reform. I mean, that's just crackers.
Yeah, and Corbyn might come back as well.
Yeah, well, he might do. Yeah. Who knows? He'll be off nationalising the railways and all that, which, to be fair, I'm not adverse to. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be fair. But it is... And why are we talking about it? We're talking about this because, let's be honest, it has an impact on business. Oh, massive. And it will impact how we do things across the industry, the decisions that are taken, the strategy that we go into. And let's be honest, we've had a few shakes over the last 5 years. we've had COVID, we've had wars. Now we've got another war.
Yeah.
And now we've got, mass migration issues. It's such a volatile time to do business, isn't it?
Well, and look, if I may, so we ran a breakfast seminar last week. So Pareto, IWFM, and HSBC.
Yeah.
The stats around wage growth because of policy change in government is quite incredible. So in the last 5 years, there's been a 46% increase in minimum wage.
Yes.
Now, us within the sector, and cleaning in particular, we know how hard that is to go and recover that from the customer.
Of course.
What HSBC are able to show is two things. Proportionate to GDP, the UK has the highest wage growth in the world of any country across the last 5 years.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is brilliant, yeah.
So when you're sat there, all the people within facilities management thinking, why are we not making as much profit as we used to? Go and have a look there first because there's been enormous. And most of it's driven by policy.
Yeah.
And also, you would have seen recently, Brewdog is going into, Brewdog's gone into administration and they're buying it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was once valued at 250 million and it sold for 33 million, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think in the last 6 years, the all-in cost for like an 18-year-old was about 19 grand a year.
Crackers.
Today it's 29 grand a year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's going to go up again in April. So it becomes much more difficult. It's easy to understand how costs have come up. What HSBC can also show in trend analysis is costs are rising proportionately more than our ability to charge that cost back to customers in every sector. Okay. So margins are being squeezed.
Yeah.
So basically your cost is going up faster than your ability to charge the customer, whether that's products or services or whatever. Now, we're already in a low margin sector.
We are.
I mean, and we're not even in construction, which is even worse than what we've got. But facilities management is struggling around, say, 4 or 5% EBITDA.
Yeah.
And actually, if that is being squeezed and customers' expectations are higher and actually people costs are more, and then you throw in that there's going to be a policy change so that after someone's been employed for 6 months, they can sue you for unfair dismissal.
Yes.
You can see how it becomes difficult for businesses.
There's changes on sick pay as well regarding
and obviously the national insurance change.
Increases.
Yes.
There's new legislation coming in around employment rights and things like that. So it's difficult for business.
It is.
Isn't it? It's very difficult.
And it just as the real kicker, and I'm a UK through and through guy, right? But as a real kicker. I was talking to a very, very large service provider. They had about £25 million of increases through the national insurance changes.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Huge. 25. Any business, I don't care who you are, 25 million is massive.
Yeah.
They passed on about half back to their customers, okay?
Yeah.
The other half, the customers said no.
Yeah.
And you know who the customer was? The UK government.
Crazy.
So the UK government can change policy and then not allow people to charge on the changes. And actually, as a businessman and entrepreneur, I struggle with that concept.
I do as well. That's horrendous.
Yes, I'm critical of big business within FM sector, absolutely. But I'm with them on that one.
Yeah.
If there is fundamental statutory policy change from the government should be the first one that says yes. Okay,
well,
we
they should be
understand
leading it. They should be the example.
Yes, there's an
because
ethical
they made
question
the
about
change.
it. Yeah,
but that's that goes to what that kind of goes down to our political system, doesn't it? Because you've got local authorities and councils that can vote and make their own decisions with the budget that they're allocated by Westminster, and the government can't mandate to those councils you have to accept these changes across all of your contracts. It's a decision that they can take, which is once again crazy.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Now, look, I'm never going into politics because I don't understand it. I don't have a huge political affiliation, and actually, I enjoy the UK. I think it's a great place to be, and you can start a business here. And I don't mind paying tax. I'm not going to go to Dubai and get a six-pack and all that sort of stuff. That's not me. It's not where I am. I don't aspire to do any of that.
No.
I believe we should pay a fair amount of tax. I believe in the welfare system. I believe in all of those things. I'm one of the biggest blood donors in the world at the moment.
I saw that today.
Yes,
I saw your medal. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. But like the NHS makes that possible.
Yeah.
Right. And so
does,
these things are absolutely incredible. So like I believe in all of that, but we cannot take away from it's hard for businesses.
No.
And we are in a sector in particular that it's extra hard for because we're already starting at a low level. Yeah. And I know anyone listening to this podcast that has been in the facility sector and delivering, customers generally want more for less.
Of course they do.
And there's only so long you can do that before that gap.
Gold star service, bronze price point.
But
that's
customers,
kind of the way it is.
They're not being unreasonable.
No.
They have their own FDs that are giving them a hard time about it. And actually, I think that's always the thing to remember. I also love about this sector that we flip between service provider and contractor side sometimes, and client side sometimes. So actually, I was talking to someone just last week, and they were saying, "Oh, what's it like on client side? What's it like contractor side?" And there are frustrations in that on every side.
Of course there would be. Yeah.
As a sector, we have to stick together. We have to do the right thing by us. We have to do the right thing by our people. We have to keep supporting things like IWFM, so we have a collective voice on what we're doing here.
Completely agree.
And that's really important to us as a sector. But if you thought it was hard, it's going to get harder. And actually, ultimately, what will happen is we know that there's 124,000 service providers in this sector.
Yep.
We know M&A activity is still very high. So of the 124,000, 93% of the businesses are less than $1 million turnover.
Wow.
So only 7% of businesses in our sector are over $1 million turnover. So that means two things. The big companies don't have many other big companies to buy.
No.
So if you look at the acquisitions of OCS and Italian Service last year, which was done by private equity, created a behemoth business, which can compete with CBRE and JLL on like a global scale now. But also in the mid-market, call it £20 million, £30 million businesses, there are thousands of £1 million businesses out there to buy. And often what you do within facilities in particular, you try and buy those at 3 or 4 times EBITDA. You group them all together and you sell them for 10 times EBITDA.
Of course.
And that arbitrage is a great way that investors make money in the sector. It doesn't mean it's easy, and you can easily buy bad businesses and deals can go wrong.
Yeah, of course you can.
But that M&A activity, I think, is here to stay. And I think the big ones will get bigger because when they're looking around, who else can they buy? They got to start buying each other. And actually, if there's billions of private equity money in the sector, which there is, then some of those deals can be done. But I really believe if you've got a £10 million business and you can do a couple of like cheap acquisitions, it's a great way to grow the business within the sector.
Yeah, of course.
And actually, I think the money you can make on the arbitrage, on the multiple change is significant. And that's why I love FM. Because I love it as an FM person, as a practitioner personally, but also as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but I would say as well, Andrew, sort of touching on that, because you are right, there isn't really that middle ground anymore. You've got a lot of very small companies and then a few massive behemoths. That, for me, I think creates opportunity for businesses that sit within that middle ground with customers that want something different. You know, that they want that client-led approach. They don't want that, you know, behemoth.
It's a bit like NJC now. You're at that 20 odd £million level, great size. You are big enough that you are not a risk in terms of going bust or everyone's going to go off on holiday tomorrow and it's all going to fall over. But you are small enough that actually you can do what's right for the customer.
Yes, of course.
And I think when anyone gets past, say, the 20 odd million level, it's a really nice size for a business. The challenge then is how you go from 20 to 50 and 50 to 100. But that's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah, of course.
But like right now, I think if when I started Pareto, we called 20 million the Premier League. So we were like, right, we want to get to the Premier League. We don't know how we're going to get there, how long it's going to take. It took us about 5 years, roughly.
You were like the Wrexham of...
well, yeah, it was the Wrexham. I don't know who else. I like to think of the Oxford United, being an Oxford boy. They were in League One at one point. But yeah, so we got to that level, and actually our growth accelerated. So in over 3 years, we grew from like 18 million to 42 million because actually that growth came really quickly. It was off the back of COVID. We'd been incredibly flexible in COVID with all of our big customers that we were working with, giving credits left, right and centre. We weren't making any profit on the stuff we were doing. It was all about helping people to get through that time. But our growth just accelerated off the back of that. And that was a deliberate investment from our side, and we took that plan. But yeah, I think... FM remains the land of opportunity. If you are grafting and you're in your early stages of your career, whatever your background is.
Of course,
I talk about young people, but actually, say you've been in the military for 20 years and you come into FM, it's exactly the same for you. You've got 20 years experience and world-leading leadership coaching behind you as well. So I think I just love it. And I love that it doesn't matter if you've been to university or not, if you have got A-levels or not. It's all about actually just being a fantastic communicator, hard worker, being available when other people are not, and busting your ass. And anybody can do that. And I love it. And my daughter, who's 6 now, I'm really encouraging her to go and be like a mechanical engineer because I can't find any good ones. So,
do you know something? You'd be interested. I read an article not that long ago that basically turned around and said engineers and electricians, especially with the advent of AI and so on and so forth, will be the next generation's £250,000 a year jobs. just because there are not enough of them across any industry.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And actually, the UK is talking about future nuclear programs and building all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We do not have enough of the skill set.
No.
One of Pareto's, and this is in the press, one of Pareto's long-term customers is London and Whipsnade Zoo.
Yeah.
Now, that's a 700-acre estate that has 20,000 animals in it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get it right in those places.
Of course, yeah.
But that's not your typical office. You need to weld the fence correctly so the lion doesn't get out.
And eat someone.
And literally eat someone. So like the standards are so high and the expectations are so, as they should be, because animal life and human life is at risk if you get it wrong.
Oh, of course.
And it's a stunning contract, an amazing place to be. But you have to get it right. Now, I'll tell you, one of the biggest problems you have in somewhere like that is, where's the next generation of welders coming from? You know, who goes to school now and wants to be a welder? And actually, fence builders, these sort of real proper old school, like you say, in a very traditional way, proper northern trade that you would get in a proper working class scenario. It's not there.
No.
And actually, like, it's going to take 15 years for the government to push it to make sure enough go through apprenticeships to come out with that skill set.
But they're still not doing that, are they?
No, and they're not pushing it enough. And there's the whole university debate now. Again, chatting to those young people this morning in the Brooks lecture, they're all coming out with at least 50,000 of debt.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And I came out with about 14,000 of debt when I did it, and it still took me a while to pay it off.
Well,
my wife still hasn't paid us off.
Yeah, I mean, it was subsidised, wasn't it?
So basically, you get a student loan, and you pay minimal interest on that student loan. But as I understand it, now that those loans are getting more significant, the interest rates are going up, and I think over a time it's going to take you a long period of time. When I did it, you could earn up to £25,000 before you started paying anything back.
Yeah.
Anything you earn over 25,000, 9% of that went back to paying off your student loan.
Right.
So if you didn't earn, you didn't pay. So it's the best loan that you could get.
Yeah.
Now those thresholds still exist, but slightly different now. But because the debt is 50 grand, let's just say the threshold is 30k. I don't know what it is now, but 30k. That's an amazing job value. To get that salary is great.
Yeah.
Now you need anything over 30 grand at 9%, say. It's going to take you a long time to pay that off.
Yeah.
The reality is millions of people will never pay that off.
No.
And actually, it's sort of the way the government have done it is to fund people through university to create the knowledge economy and keep people going through it. But more and more people I talk to now, and my kids are 12 years away from this decision, they're not going to send them to university. They're going to do apprenticeships. And you had Ella Gladwin on here before as one of them. Ella is doing a degree apprenticeship. So simultaneously, she is studying at university for a degree and doing her operational experience.
Yeah.
I think that's the way forward.
I agree. I think it has to be. I mean, as I've got a 13-year-old son.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to be an electrical engineer, and I've said to him, go and get the practical knowledge. Like, if there's an opportunity to go to a school which teaches you that, go and get that, and then get a job and maybe go to school or do the theory one day a week. Because the reality is, I'm a firm believer. I mean, I didn't go to university, actually, but I've done all right. You know what I mean? I've got a good career.
Yeah.
You know,
in our sector, I don't think going to university is a benefit. I think it's just you may have gone through that path. I don't think you need it.
But I think as well, I think back, 20 years ago, I think in university there was, and even now, probably the last 10 years, there was a lot of universities having what I would call predatory courses, predatory degrees, whereby they probably knew there's nothing at the back end of this, but let's get everyone in university so they can have a good time. Yeah. There's a lot of people like that have come out and they're now, they're working in jobs which they weren't expecting to work in. So naturally, across society as well, there's a huge dip in terms of dissatisfaction, mental health, and things like that comes with it. So it just seems like there's just been a plethora of wrong decisions across multiple industries.
So I went to university in 2005. There was a genuine course that was clown studies.
That's crazy.
You could do 3 years in clown studies.
But crazy.
Yeah. But hey, look, we need clowns, right? But there are plenty of clowns out there. We met a few. But no, actually, I think my point is, back when I went to university, so I was the first one in my family to go. My mum and dad didn't want me to go because it didn't feel like the right thing for our family for me to go down that route.
Right.
They weren't trying to block me. They were just saying, Andrew, look, we both work in like trade style businesses. You need to go and get a trade. A very traditional working class conversation that you'd expect. But because I got into sixth form and all my like middle class mates that I then started hanging around with were all going to university, I wanted to do the same.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, and actually when I went to university, I thought I'm just going to go and have a good time, and I was going to Essex and all that sort of stuff, and I met my wife on the first day, and actually it ended up being what made me. Going there is what made me, and actually without it, I would have had a very different path in life. Although I like to think as an entrepreneur, you would have ended up doing something anyway, and that's just life. But I don't know right now. So the German model is exactly the Ella Gladwin model, as in you go to university and you study and you work at the same time.
That makes sense.
It does. And because imagine now you're 22, 23 years old, you have 4 years of work experience and you have a degree behind you, maybe even a master's.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Puts you in a brilliant position.
And actually, I just said, I was asking some of those students real world questions today, and they don't know. I studied business for 3 years.
Yeah.
I remember going to Rollright and someone talking to me about TUPE and purchase orders. I was like, I don't know what TUPE is, and I have no idea what a PO is.
Yeah.
Actually, you realise immediately POs make the world go round.
Yeah, they do.
So in a 3-year business degree that I just studied, why did no one tell me about purchase orders?
That's crackers, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually, like that practical advice is a real thing. And I think, the other thing was universities are not making any money. That's the other challenge for the UK. I have a friend who advises universities from like a consultancy level. They're going to merge more and more together because so Essex, where I was 50% international students. Because when I studied, it was $3,000 a year, but an international student was $12,000 a year. Right. So of course, if you're a university, take as many internationals as you can because it's literally 4 times the income of what an English one was.
Makes sense, yeah.
It does. And it was great because Tuesday was Latin night, Wednesday was Afro beats, Thursday was Asian night. It was absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and that was before the weekend. And but actually, that I really believe in that. And partly my social upbringing and the diverse background and everything I've had was because of that experience at university. Because I went into a halls of residence with 30 other people where half of those weren't from the UK. Well, that is a brilliant environment to be an 18-year-old working out.
Yeah.
And certainly we had a lot of contingents from China and Japan and Korea and South America and Africa. It was amazing. A great group of people. And you're all 19, you're all trying to work it out and you're all drunk. So you had a great time.
So you have a good time.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, isn't it? Breaking down barriers, as they say,
literally,
Andrew.
Literally.
Okay, so one quick question. I always like to ask people this whenever I'm talking to somebody that's either started a business or anything like that. How did you come up with the name Pareto?
I ask myself this question sometimes because it's pronounced Pareto, right?
Pareto, sorry.
No, please.
Yeah.
But
I always mispronounce it. I'm known for it.
But this is the whole point, right? If anyone wants some business advice, choose a business name that people can pronounce because I still have Pareto clients today that call it Parento.
Yeah.
There's an N in there or Pareto.
Yeah.
So we used to say Pareto Ato or Pareto Potato is what my kids say. Pareto Potato. So Vilfredo Pareto, he was a philosopher and civil engineer in the early 1900s. So Vilfredo Pareto, and he came up with the 80-20 rule, which what he realized back in the 1900s was 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. So he called that 20% the critical few. So the idea was that 20% of the population owned 80% of the land. Yeah. So if you wanted to make a change to land ownership, you go to those 20% of the people.
Yeah.
And my first logo, which never made it out, was like a circle with 20% highlighted out in a different color. And it was all about the critical few. So the phrase initially we used to use was the trivial many and the critical few. Right. And for me, it was about being intelligent and focusing on the critical few. And very quickly, the word Pareto just became synonymous with our business style.
Yeah.
Because Pareto was a very multicultural place. It was very open, inclusive, diverse, really represented its values very well. And we would use this phrase, are they a Pareto person? Yeah. Because Pareto just represented something. And I go back to the home of the broken and what that meant for us all.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So very quickly, Pareto became an adjective for what it meant to work in our culture within the business, which was so powerful. Because again, when people talk about how do you build a culture and what does it all mean? The word Pareto and the colour, the blue that we used to use, was really quite powerful for that. Yeah. And the other phrase we used to have, you'll like this one, we used to have a phrase in Pareto was, we don't employ dickheads.
Yeah, I like that.
That was the don't employ dickheads thing, which was really powerful for us because... Look, as a highly strung entrepreneur in my early 30s, as I was running through everything, I could be a dickhead, believe it or not.
Well, we all have our moments.
We all have our moments. And I hope the management team would attest to this, but we had an environment in our senior team where if any of us were being too much or we were being too hard or gone down the wrong route or just going over the top, we'd say, hey, look, you're being a dickhead. It says on the wall, we don't employ dickheads. Let's just all get back to that point together. And that was really powerful. And I talk about that group of 15 people. It was so special because any of us could have those type of conversations. Even me, even as the founder and the CEO, you could have those conversations. And that is what culture should be about.
I agree.
I don't believe in this idea of being scared of people above you. No. And actually, like the flat structure that we used to run was very real. Now, whilst on paper a structure may not look flat, how one interacts interacts with each other, how people interact with each other is what makes it flat.
Well, of course, yeah.
And I loved WhatsApp. I mean, as I started Pareto, WhatsApp was really coming to the fore, and it was good and bad because it meant I could never switch off.
Yes.
Never.
Yeah.
And for 10 years, I didn't have a personal phone number. I just had my work number because it didn't matter where I was. I didn't need a personal number because all I was doing was work.
Yeah, see, mine's kind of like that, but it's the other way around. See, my personal phone, over the years, has just become my work phone because, like, you network, you meet clients, you get to know people throughout the year, and I'm like, oh, I can't bother having two phones.
Yes,
I felt like a drug dealer for one thing, which is just too much.
Yeah, I had three at one point.
Yeah, and it's just so much. It's so much easier. So I get it completely. Yeah. Like,
and that is so. What you're talking about isn't brilliant advice for someone who's trying to create boundaries.
No, I agree.
Because there are no boundaries. And actually, the whole point was, and for me, look, I was always on. It didn't matter what time of day it was. And Bill, my right-hand man, who ran all the finance and the ops and all of the processes in the business, he would stay up until about 3 a.m. That was his natural time he would stay awake until. And I would wake up about 4:35 in the morning. So it was only about an hour and a half a day that someone wasn't awake that was in an authoritative position. Wow. And my phone would be on the loudest it could be. I'd have a backup charger behind the backup charger to make sure that it was always on. Now, I did that for 9 odd years, and that's okay. And it sounds like nice, but actually that's hard work. And
takes a toll.
It does. You can never switch off. I didn't have any grey hairs before I started. Now I'm almost exclusively grey. Yeah. I was laughing on my socials because I talked about retiring at 37 and someone said, you look 57. It really tickled me.
I don't think you look that old.
No,
fair,
it really tickled me because I love negative comments on social media that people take the time out to do it. I'm laughing now. It really tickled me. Yeah. And I was like, if I dyed my beard, I wonder if I'd go back, but I never would. So, but
bit just for men.
Yeah, a bit just for men. That's right. Yeah. But look, it sounds great, but actually you sacrifice an awful lot in that time. And actually you sacrifice relationships and friends as the first one you say no to because you're not seeing your family enough. Yeah. And then you've got obviously your immediate partner. If you have kids, that's the thing. You got your mum and dad and your sisters and everything. And so for me, I wasn't always a great person to be around when I was under that pressure. And also people ask me this a bit as well. I never really stopped to celebrate success. And I really mean that because actually every time we won a big contract, and like I say, we once won a contract that was £30 million a year, £30 million over a 5 to 6 year period, big numbers. You don't think, yes, I've won a contract. No. You think, shit, how am I going to deliver this contract? Yeah. And that's entrepreneurship, right?
It's true, yeah.
And then you're looking around going, oh, we shouldn't have got rid of that person. We need to hire someone else. Or we haven't got enough engineers or which welder's coming in. Yeah. All those different things. But there was never, ever a moment where you just patted yourself on the back and go, oh, we're really good at this. Yeah. Because it was always about what's next.
Yeah. And I understand.
And that's sales, completely. Right?
Yeah,
you're just relentless. And
I get about 5 minutes to say, well done to it. And then next. Yeah.
The other thing as well, which again, I think is decent advice, but you need to get over the bad things that happen pretty quickly. When you're growing really quickly, you just need to get on with it. Bad stuff happens. Yeah. And I think that I'm going to butcher this quote, but Winston Churchill says, you never move forward if you stop to throw rocks at every dog that barks at you. That's the quote, right?
True, yeah.
And if you stop to have an argument with everyone who is trying to bring you down, you are never going to move forward.
No, agreed.
And that is such an important thing for me. And I have this Kevlar where do whatever you want, right? I'm my own person. I hold myself to a lot higher standards than you could ever hold me to. So say whatever you like. Call me a 57-year-old with a grey beard. That's fine by me. But actually, that was really important to me. And I think that people need to get that because if you stop to argue, you just get in the way. No, but that's every aspect of life. I nearly got into a road rage incident this morning because someone pulled out from me and I thought, we're stuck in traffic now. I could get out and knock on their window. That wouldn't be the right thing to do.
No, God, no.
And who cares, right? In terms of that. It's, I talk about coming from the council estate. It was my grandmother's funeral who moved to that estate just on yesterday. I spoke at that funeral, which was a really meaningful time and really important time to sort of reflect on where the family had come from. Yeah. But my nan she was in London as an evacuee. She came out to Oxford in the Second World War when she was a teenager, hiding under the stairs. She gets a caravan on a council estate in the 50s with my granddad, and they go on to create this legacy of a family. And
it's crazy.
The most powerful thing I saw yesterday, so at the funeral, there were 3 people there who are in their 60s now, but my nan and gramp ran the community centre there, and there was also a children's home in that area as well. And my gramp in particular just said to the kids in the children's home, you want to have some food, just come into our kitchen. Just take what you like. The door's never locked. This is the 60s, right? People just come in and out.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, the proper old days when you didn't have to worry about your phone being stolen. You didn't even have a phone.
No, there was no phone.
There wasn't even
Most
a phone.
people didn't have a telly, Andy.
No, they didn't. Well, I mean, my grandparents didn't even have a house. It was a caravan to start off with.
Yeah.
But actually, so like, and they were just seen as like the most brilliant people on the estate helping everybody out. And even yesterday, these 60-year-olds, there were 3 of them, they were 3 children from the children's home. Really? And they still refer to them as mum and dad now, even though they both passed away. Absolutely true. Oh. And that was so powerful for me. And that whole sort of like working class council estate mentality, starting from absolutely nothing and going to deliver something, was just personified in that conversation with those 3. Yeah. And they were absolutely like, they could remember going into the kitchen, and one of the guys was telling me, one of them would wait by the door, one of them would run into the fridge, take some stuff, throw it to the guy at the door, and they'd run away with it, even though they didn't need to. That's just what they felt they were doing. Yeah. It was so powerful. And it just reminded me all the way through why I started Pareto and why social mobility is so important, and the legacy I want to leave for my own kids. It was so powerful. So I'm very philosophical and reflective about that at the moment, because that was only yesterday.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. I completely understand. It is. I think when you look back on like your history, because I look back sometimes, and look, I haven't started my own business or achieved what you've achieved, but I'm still very proud of what I've achieved, and my mother's very proud of me as a human being and a professional. That's more important to me than anything. You know, it really is. You know, like my mum will say it to me sometimes. She's like, "Oh, you host a podcast," and she watches them as well, and she'll like text me.
Why has she not been a guest yet? She should have been.
She lives in New Zealand.
Imagine bringing you up though. She's got a lot of. She's got a lot of stories.
She's got a few grey hairs as well, Andy. To be fair, well, she does. She watches it, but it gives you a sense of pride, I think, and it's not to me. It's not about the income that you earn or anything like that. It's more about the work that you do, the fact that you make a difference, that you're making the right decisions, and you're completely right about the type of organisation that you want to be. I think, you know, the business that I work for has been that kind of business for a long time. In fact, it was founded on those principles by Connie 41 years ago, and it's managed to retain those principles for all those years. So it's really great to see somebody who started their business back when you did, which isn't that long ago.
No, it's 2014 I started.
But to start your business with similar principles and maintain it throughout that process, I think is brilliant. And all fair play to you. You know,
thank you.
I think that's great.
Please don't get me wrong. Success is what we all feel in here. Yeah. Success is not a financial number. No. Because there are many, something I talk about a bit with entrepreneurship is when I went through my exit, I didn't go through depression. But they say 87% of men who sell businesses go through depression.
Really?
Yeah, because a lot of people think that you get tens of millions or whatever your number is, and you're going to go and sit on a beach in the Bahamas forever. Yeah. Cool. You go and sit on the beach, you're there for 2 weeks. You got your tan, you got your all-inclusive, you're putting weight on. You're not seeing anyone.
No, that's true.
And actually, as someone who finished work towards my late 30s, it wasn't as if all my mates were just like, oh yeah, come round on a Tuesday afternoon. That wasn't
because they're all grafting.
They're all grafting. They've got kids. They're working and all that. And actually, you have to sort of redefine what success means to you. And I go back to my mum, and look, my mum's still my best friend, right? And on all of that, and everything I did, my mum was a massive motivator for me, because my mum had to sell some shares and things so I could go to university and fund for me to go.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So when I got my first lot of millions, the first thing I did is I went and bought my mum and dad their house. I bought my sisters their house. I bought my own house. And literally, I went to the bank and I took £250,000 out in cash on a quad bike, in flip-flops, in a hoodie, it's true. And I got a Sainsbury's bag and I put £250,000 in a Sainsbury's bag. Yeah. And I drove to my mum and dad's house and I poured all this money over the floor, gave my dad a card and said, you're retiring today, 5 years early.
Wow.
Now, that feeling is a lot better than when I went and bought a bright yellow McLaren 570S for 100 grand in the showroom. Yeah. That then when I sat in it, because I didn't even drive it, I just went in. I went in to buy an Aston Martin, saw the McLaren, bought it in cash because I just wanted to buy it. When it got delivered to my house, I sat in it and my arse was too big to fit in the seat. Now, I promise you, the feeling of giving my dad that money and buying my mum her house and buying my sisters their houses and everything, and being at home in the morning when my kids come to cuddle me and having an amazing relationship with them is worth 1,000,000 times more than 1,000 yellow McLarens or Ferraris or Aston Martins or whatever. Yeah. it isn't about wealth.
No.
It's and financial wealth. It's about time, relationships, warmth, and knowing what's important to you. I couldn't give a shit about how much money you earn or not. And there are many people who have made hundreds of millions,
of course,
and still want to go and do more, and still keep going. But that's cool. That's their choice. I have no problem with that. But actually, for me, I got to a point where my family became more important, and grafting and working as hard as I was fine for a period. But now I have to go back and focus on the children and being there as well.
What a great time to be able to do that as well, though. Given that, because you are quite young, you're still 37.
I'm 39 now. Yeah, so 2 years ago.
To be able to actually spend that quality time with your children after setting up Pareto.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Could have called it Parento. I would have gone with that as well.
But you know, I would love that opportunity. You know, I mean, I'm quite lucky in terms of my role. You know, like I get to see. I've got a 5-year-old daughter as well as 2 older children. But my 5-year-old, I get to spend a lot of time with. You know, because I can work from home. It's quite a family-orientated place. I can take her to school. I can pick her up from time to time. So I'm very, very lucky in that sense. I miss bedtime a lot just because of networking.
But you know, can I ask you a question? So when you do the drop off in the morning, are there many other dads that are doing the same? Is it predominantly mums?
Predominantly mums.
Yeah.
Not as many. To be fair, for a large part, because my daughter started school in September.
Yes.
For most of that period, it's been me that drops her off at school and not her mother. And then we'd have somebody who looks after her after school pick her up because Kelly works certain hours. Now, Kelly's sort of changed that now. She's gone onto a part-time schedule so that she could be picking her up at school and things like that. But predominantly mums, but more dads than I expected.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
And actually, I have the same. I reckon it's probably 70% mums, 30% dads
I
where
would
we
say
are.
That's probably a good... Yeah.
But actually, it's not always that. It's some parents, and look, no judgment on parents. Parenting is hard. I don't pretend to have...
Hardest job in the world.
Yeah, I don't pretend to have any answers on that. But some parents, and bless them, they run to the school gate, they throw their kids in, because they got to get back for 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
so they've got to be on a call or whatever that they're doing.
Got to be on a Teams call or something like that,
And the privilege I feel to be able to stand there, waving my kid in, bringing some sausage rolls for the mums, and all that sort of stuff, and just creating those things is really powerful. And actually... Once my son, when he was at nursery a couple of years ago, they had a stay and play at nursery. It was on like a Thursday afternoon at 2:00 or something. Yeah. Really inconvenient time for most parents to do it. Yeah. I was the only parent that went.
Really?
Literally. And as I walked into that nursery, my son Luca, the look on his face as I walked in, he was so happy to see me because I was the only parent there. And he walked in and he gave me a cuddle and I sat down on the mat with him and I was reading a book.
Yeah.
And so I was reading the book with him. I had 5 kids on my shoulders. They wouldn't leave me alone because I was like this enormous beast of a man of 6'3" and 18 stone. They'd never seen someone my size before. Yeah. And I was like, I haven't even been CRB checked. No children should be touching me at this stage. Yeah. And I'm sat there reading this thing. Yeah. I think back to that moment. The look on his face when I went in there. And if I hadn't have got to the position that I was, I never would have been in that room. Yeah. And as many other parents couldn't be there. And I understand. I get it. But that's incredibly special. Yeah. You can have all the millions back. More of those sort of things is what I'm trying to do, and that's what life is about.
Yeah, because I see as well in terms of, because I know that obviously, you know, we're talking about FM here, but there's quite a bit you do around entrepreneurial things. Yeah. So I just want to talk about some of the things that you do on LinkedIn, which I find really interesting.
Right.
You tried to travel across Europe for a budget of
£181 to go down Eastern Europe.
To go down Eastern. How many countries did you visit?
So I did 3. So that was Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania for 181.
But that was funny. That
People like that really got people's attention.
I watched that, and I kind of thought to myself, that takes some discipline, actually.
Yes.
Because you've got the funds to be able to do it a little bit differently if you want to. So to stick to that budget and do it, I think is quite interesting. Yeah. Obviously, we talked about your blood donating, but for everybody out there, Andrew got his medal today because he's actually donated blood over 100 times, and as a direct result of that blood donation, you've actually saved 1,000 lives.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Which I think is commendable.
Yes, thank you.
That really is. But just because a lot of people who don't donate blood, probably don't realise how long it takes, because a pint of blood is actually quite a bit.
Yeah,
more than you realise.
If I may just talk about blood briefly, just to promote it, because there are about 1.5% of the UK population donates blood. Yeah. There are thousands of reasons you cannot donate blood, and no slight on anyone that can't.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But those who are, and this is generally to men under 40 years old who are relatively healthy and have any reason to not, that's the blood they need. And
really?
actually, the UK only has stocks of about 6 or 7 days of blood for every blood type that we have. So if there's a major incident, and look, there's a war going on in the world at the moment, we only have 7 days of blood. And actually, they need more. So there are 800,000 donors in the UK, and there's a population of, 70 million? Now, many people can't donate, so I understand. So what I do is I donate every 2 weeks. Now, the point of donating every 2 weeks is I have to live my life in a certain way to be able to donate. I don't know if you saw the long list of things you can't do. Some of them are not broadcastable. But basically, things like drugs, things like using prostitutes, things like certain types of pills that you can't take in terms of paracetamol and stuff.
Yeah.
You can't have a cold.
No.
I've been donating blood every 15 days for 2.5 years.
I didn't know you couldn't have a cold. Why is
that? You can't have a cold because it can impact the platelets and the plasma in your blood.
Really?
So if you go in there with a stinking cold, they'll turn you away.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And actually, they're really strict because you cannot, it's the quality of, especially with platelets in particular, which is what clogs your blood, it impacts that. But I have not had a cold in 2.5 years, and I have a child in nursery and a child in school.
How have you managed that?
It's literal.
They're chemical weapons.
It is a literal miracle. And out of everything that I say about entrepreneurship and the tens of millions, that should be the most unbelievable thing that I say. But that is absolutely true.
Are you sure you didn't just fall asleep for a week once?
No, I know. No, absolutely
I don't
not.
see how that's possible.
And so literally not had a cold for 2.5 years. And over Christmas, of course, everyone gets a cold over Christmas.
I feel like I'm working with some kind of sickness for the majority of winter every year.
And I wasn't any different. I used to be the same. I spoke to a GP about it because actually after I exited and I wanted to calm down a bit, I went and got, because I mean, I've got so many stories for you, but in the lead up to selling the business, I lost 9 stone in 7 months.
What?
Yeah, so I just one day, that's also true. I woke up one day and I just went on a 500 calorie a day diet for 150 days straight. And the people around me know what I'm like, and they know that's true. I lost 9 stone in 7 months.
Bloody hell.
No tablets, no Manjaro, no sewing my stomach up or anything like that. I actually, this is also true, I got to a point where I got so thin, my wife said, I don't find you attractive at this weight. You need to put a little bit of weight back on.
Really?
So I just absolutely decimated my body. And if anyone wants to go and find it, Lad Bible ran the story.
Yeah.
And 40 million people on Lad Bible saw it.
Really?
And if you want to have thick skin, go and read 2,000 comments about people calling you a fat whatever on Lad Bible. Is a really interesting thing to do. Because Lad Bible made it look like I'd put on 9 stone in 7 months in the headline. Then people are going, oh, this fat whatever. But actually, I'd lost it. And if you look at the photos of me on deal day when we exited, you can see a marked change. I put about 2 stone back on now.
Yeah.
Because my wife mainly, I still wanted her to be attracted to me.
Well, exactly.
It was an important. It was an important part of that, an important part of the last couple of years of like reconnecting and all that sort of stuff too. Yeah. So I just think like all these things are mindset based. And I think they're entrepreneurial based, and like I've completely lost the trail of where I was going. But for me, like I want to tell the stories of these things. Now, I do not suggest you go on a 500 calorie a day diet, but I went to the doctors, that's what it was, and I had a full body health check, everything, including prostate, testicles, absolutely everything. It's important that men realise you need to have a finger up your arse occasionally to check that everything's going to be all right. We should care about men's health because actually there is something, when I was 37, I went to the doctor to have my prostate checked, and it was a middle-aged woman doctor. And they say, do you want a chaperone to come in? Do you want to do that? That's a really awkward situation to be in. Yeah. But I was, 37? I'd never had my prostate checked. It's an important thing to do from a cancer perspective. Women are really good at going to have their breasts checked on a regular basis. We don't do that as men so much. I think on like the blood donation stuff and the weight loss stuff and checking on your body and being healthy, like all those things are important. But I put all of that off for nearly 10 years. Because that wasn't what my focus was. My focus was growing the business and trying to be successful. And then when I could see that we'd sort of got over the main bit of the business and that we'd be exiting at some point, I put my weight back at the focus of what I was doing. And look, for the truth of it, after 150 days of being on that calorie level, when I started eating normally again, I'd given myself IBS. And when I was eating food, my body just couldn't process it. So it took me nearly about 6 weeks to get over that. Yeah. So I didn't put weight on very quickly because, without going into too much detail, but if I ate something, my body would just reject it because it wasn't used to it for the 6 months before that.
Wow.
Although everybody likes the idea of losing loads of weight very quickly, that is the way to do it, but maybe not 500 calories a day. Maybe go 1,500 calories and go from there. You
must have been starving.
I was starving, but also I cut out alcohol, sugar, carbs, and caffeine at the same time.
Wow.
And I was running on maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep. I wasn't always the nicest person to be around, if you can imagine.
No.
But
I bet you felt like absolute shit. Excuse my language, but I bet you did.
Sorry, I've sworn a lot more than that. I, mindset-wise, was so driven that things like hunger and things like being tired, you just got over it. Just got on with it. And for anyone that does go on low-calorie diets, your body does get used to it quite quickly.
Does it really?
Yeah, you need a lot of water because your body needs water. But I think you can go without water as a human for like 2 days.
Yeah.
You can go without food for like a week.
You can do, yeah. That's true.
People like, I mean, even Rishi Sunak, he used to go on a 50-hour fast. He used to, on a Saturday evening, he would stop eating and he wouldn't eat until Monday morning again.
Really?
Yeah, a self-imposed thing. So I do the same. I just fasted sort of 22 hours a day and ate in a 2-hour window. But partly also for anyone who does go and sell a business and go through quick growth, you feel like you're losing control a lot of the time. Right. And actually, so my food and my eating to some degree is like a disorder level, was that I could control what I was eating. And I could weigh myself in the morning and in the evening. I could put it in a line graph and I could see how it was changing and I could see the point I was trying to get to.
Right.
But yeah, go and look at it on Lad Bible. It's on there.
So, quick question. Had you become quite unhealthy from a weight perspective before you decided to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I got to 24 stone. So I was a BMI of over 42 at that stage.
Bloody hell, really?
Yeah. Wow. And I got down to about 15 stone in that time. So that's the 9 stone difference.
Yeah.
I was still over my BMI. But like BMI, I'm 6'3", nearly 6'4", so like BMI is not really a thing for people of this height.
I ain't BMI because I'm 5'7", so it doesn't matter how much I lose. I'm obese.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
Even after I'd lost 9 stone, technically I was still obese.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. But actually, when I put on a couple more stone, like I mentioned, after my wife had a word with me, I went and had my health check. The doctor said, "You're a really healthy weight. This is great. Stay around this level and you'll be okay." Yeah. But if we have this discussion, for the previous 6 years, I had gained and lost 6 stone a year for 5 years in a row. 5 or 6 years in a row, I'd gained and lost 6 stone.
So you'd really yo-yoed then?
Massively. And what is not good about yo-yoing is the risk of diabetes.
Yes.
Because your insulin resistance is impacted because it's up and down.
Yeah.
Now, what we did in Pareto every September, we did a skydive. So we did 100 skydives in Pareto.
Bloody hell.
Now, the reason my weight went up and down every year is because I used to get down to 18 stone to do the skydive because that was the weight limit. And then after that, literally as I hit the ground from the skydive, I'd have donuts there waiting so I could start putting it all back on. I'd eat whatever I wanted until April. I'd put on 6 stone. And then from April to September, I'd go on a diet again, lose it all, do the skydive. 5 or 6 years in a row, we did that.
Wow.
Yeah, I am an unbalanced person in many, many ways. But that's what makes me a great entrepreneur, but not always a great person.
Well, it's what's quite interesting there is the mentality. Yeah. The mentality seems to be evident in each element. So, starting and growing the business, the weight, there's a mentality.
The blood donation, to be one of the biggest in the world.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, 100 is, that's real commitment. Yeah. And commitment over a sustained period. Which I think is probably one of the things that people should probably learn about leadership, because a lot of what leadership is commitment.
Yeah, I forgot we're talking about leadership. Is that what we're here to talk about?
Well,
Shall we start?
But this is the thing. It's been such an open, transparent conversation that everything around leadership has kind of come out anyway, Andrew.
Yeah.
And do you know what? What a great way for it to come out as well. Rather than me just directing questions at you, it's been a conversation between you and I, and we've got to really know you as an individual. And I think that that's far better for the audience than, what's your favourite thing?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That's kind of scenario.
If I may, just on leadership, what worked incredibly well for me was what I would call professional vulnerability.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to pretend you know it all. You don't have to pretend you're always happy or that you know how you're going to get yourself out of a situation. In your leadership style and with your team, be vulnerable to them. Yeah. Let them know that you're pissed off about something, or that this has upset you, or that you're feeling nervous about this. Or when I used to go into sales pitches, I would hype myself up. I would get really I would only focus on that. That hyper focus was something that I was very good at, which made me good in terms of delivery. But in the lead up to it, I would be a bit down. I'd be very insular, focused on what I was doing.
I'm very the same.
And that's how we prepare for these things.
I'm in my head.
Yes. But actually, and then when people start being annoying and stuff, you can be a bit snappy because you're like, no, I'm trying to get in the zone here. So I think for me, be vulnerable. It's okay. And also just be flexible with people. like I would, if I called someone at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, I would expect them to answer the phone in my senior team. That is the expectations I had. Yeah. But if they called me and said, look, Monday morning, sorry, my kid's sick, or my dog's sick, or my wife's done this, or my husband's done that, cool. Yeah. You sort yourself out, come back and let me know when you're ready. We'll hold the ball for you in the meantime.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that vulnerability and flexibility and giving the benefit of the doubt to people goes a certain way. But I mean that, we all meet people who are not sincere, and you need to be very careful about who you trust and who you bring into your circle of trust. But that's leadership.
But as well, people can be sincere for a period of time, and then those people can change.
Yes.
Because their agenda no longer fits your agenda or whatever. So it's complex, is it? People, look, let's be honest. People are weird, and we're all weird.
We're all very weird.
Back as that old Yorkshire saying, "There's naught as queer as folk."
Absolutely.
And it's very, very true. Yeah. One question I'd like to ask you, Andy. What would you say your biggest mistake from a leadership perspective was? What if you have one that you look back on and you go,
I made many, many, many mistakes. I tell a nice story, but you make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake I made, I took too long to hire good people in senior roles.
Right.
I was a classic micromanager from the very beginning. It took me maybe 6 or 7 years to start letting go.
Oh, really?
And I mentioned we grew from 18 to 42 million in 2 years.
Yeah.
Had I have let go earlier than that, and by let go, I mean hire senior people and put some money into the overhead and actually bring that team in. Had I have let go, say, in year 4 instead of year 6, I think we probably could have gone faster in what we were doing.
Really? Right.
So my biggest mistake was not spending more money on overhead and good people, because I was so obsessed with doing it myself and doing it my own way.
Yeah.
And that's why then I ended up working on Saturdays and Sundays every weekend. Sundays, I used to sit and write tenders, because this is before AI, right? You remember the days we used to sit and write everything.
I still do it now, mate.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a different podcast. You shouldn't be. My whole point is that was not just sit down and knock something out in ChatGPT. No. That was sit and write for 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah. And it was exhausting.
It was. It's timing, because your brain capacity. Especially then if an argument I used to have with my wife was, I used to take Saturday afternoon off. Yeah. I like football. I'd watch Final Score. I'd go and eat something.
Yeah.
But on Sundays I'd work.
Yeah.
But what would happen is on Sundays, on Saturdays, that would when she did ballet in the morning. But I'd work in the morning, and I couldn't see her on that time because I was working on Saturday morning. Yeah. And she was saying, "Well, can't you change it so you're off at the same time I am?" And I'm like, "No, that's the time I have to work because of what I'm doing." And actually, so I was already sacrificing at that stage when she was asking me to be available on a Saturday, and I wasn't available. And she was like, "Oh, why can't you just not work on Sunday instead, and we can be together on Sunday?" And those things can be really hard. But actually, my wife, we've been together 20 years now. 9 of those years I wasn't really here in the marriage because I was so busy with everything else that was going on. She's the hero of the story, because how you keep that marriage together, you get rejected consistently, you're not prioritized in a relationship, you bring children in, and then that person's not there as well. That's hard work. Yeah. And actually, the last 2 years, a big chunk has been about making it up to her to say thank you for what's happening. And hopefully she feels that things are better these days, but you'll have to ask her. And just a real example. Today, I had a gap between doing the Brooks lecture and coming here. Yeah. So she came over to Headington, where I was doing the Brooks lecture, and we went and walked around the field for an hour around Bure Park in that area. Amazing. Brilliant. Right, just having an hour together, no phones, holding each other's hand, walking around. Been together 20 years. You know how romantic that is.
Yeah, of course.
And it's about creating the time for that to happen. Yeah. But I didn't do that for a long time. So I tell wonderful stories, but the reality is hard work. And how the marriage survived was really quite lucky.
Yeah.
But really down to her.
But it's great to hear you actually say that, to be fair. Because I don't think anybody can achieve any amount of success unless they've got a strong partner behind them. Actually, propping that individual up and helping them do well.
I said on a different podcast, it was a bit dark actually, but I was like, if you're going to run your own business and you know that before you get married, you need to look at your partner, whether you're a man or a woman, I don't care. Look at your partner and go, in the darkest times when you are not there, is your relationship going to survive it? Because many entrepreneurs end in divorce. That's just what happens. Yeah. And actually, you need to create when you're thinking about saying I do, when they say, for sick and for poor and all that sort of stuff, are you really going to be able to do it? And I count myself as lucky from that perspective.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. So if you were to do it all again, Andy, and you may well do because you're only a young chap.
Yes.
Who knows? In a couple of weeks, there could be a new FM based off some kind of early 19th century engineer's name that kicks off. If you were to do it all again, what would you do differently?
It's a good question. Right now, if I was doing it today, so from IWFM, we know the top 5 things that the customer base is most interested in from a UK perspective is energy.
Yeah.
So it's utility cost, it's decarbonisation, it's reducing energy utilisation, it's carbon neutrality, it's net zero.
Yeah.
I'd go really hard in that area.
Yeah.
So if I was running an engineering business, like I would almost call myself green FM from that perspective and really go down the sustainability route because we know that's what customers are interested in.
Yeah.
We know, I mean, look, just from the Middle East stuff now, we know the price of gas has more than doubled.
Yeah.
The businesses do not have the money to pay twice the gas prices they were last week. No. Or in July it will change. But
petrol at the pump's gone up by 12p in the last day and a half.
I filled up on Sunday, luckily. So
I wish I had that.
In my Volvo,
I did it today.
My 70 litre tank in the Volvo of diesel. Yeah. So for me, I'd go really heavy into that.
Right.
And as an SME for small businesses, big businesses, big service providers, your competitors have massive carbon footprints.
Yes.
Massive.
Huge.
Over 1 million tonnes a year, easily. Yeah. Something we led on in Pareto, and I'm still incredibly proud of. Our carbon footprint used to be like 169 tonnes a year.
Yeah.
Our competitors were 1 million tonnes a year.
Yeah.
So when I used to go into a sales pitch, what do you think I'd tell the customer? I'd make sure they knew that the other ones who'd just come out have 1 million tonnes of carbon tonnage.
Well, we do a very. I mean, we're the only cost-free cleaning provider in the UK.
Okay,
like without a doubt. Like we've rolled it out across our entire business. There are no harsh chemicals in the delivery of our services across our commercial cleaning business. And you know that does go down well. You know, but that was a big investment by the business. Yeah, Andrew, to actually
because you got to buy more expensive.
Yeah, you've got to buy more expensive stuff. It's a bold step. We've also taken a significant amount of virgin plastics out of our supply chain, but that is a bold step. You know, there's not many companies that do something along those lines, and it takes bravery to do because one, you don't know how the market's going to react to it, and two, your current client base where you're now saying it's going to be a little bit more, but this is the reason why. You know, it's a big rollout. So I completely understand what you guys did. It's so brave.
That advice I just gave you is exactly what you're doing. Yeah. You know, like you're leaning into the energy side and the sustainability. And look, I'm a massive critic of net zero. The UK will not be net zero by 2050.
Well, it's impossible. The technology, the infrastructure is not there, Andrew. It's just not there.
And Scotland
all we're doing is offsetting, which is all. And to be fair, we're sending it to countries that are producing the energy, but in a far dirtier way than we could produce it here. It's just, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Crazy.
And actually, that's why. So on the, I ended up with my money. I ended up buying a farm, and I have some acreage now over in Oxfordshire. So one of the things I did is I planted my own forest. So 1,600 trees. I planted it last January. Yeah. And would you believe we had the driest summer in history, and 86% of them died.
Oh no!
So so I had to replant them all again. Cost me $7,000. Now, luckily, I'm all right at selling things. So I went out to the market. I raised $8,000, and I replanted. And I made £1,000 on my replanting for my forest. So we might replant it every year now. Just to see.
No, well, if you need any support from a like-minded organisation, Andrew, we'd happy to come along and help.
But you know, even in Pareto, we used to plant trees in Peru. And I bet there were no trees. No. But it gave us a carbon offset.
Yes.
But I like this idea. I'm being facetious about the money side of things, but genuinely people paid us to plant real trees on my land. Real trees they could come and see.
Well, that's brilliant.
And they can even take a picture of it. And some of them have because it's been great social media stuff for them. But I just think there's a whole facade around green and sustainability, and it's not real. And I just wanted to cut through what was very real. And but just, again, sorry for just people who are entrepreneurs who are listening, really basic stuff, right? Say you are a very small business and maybe you have one office and you're very small. Change your provider to a sustainable energy provider. So you're buying sustainable energy and put a statement on your website that we're 100% fueled by sustainable energy. Yeah. It's really basic stuff. It doesn't have to cost you very much. And that was very powerful. It's even like Pareto's IT systems that we originally set up. Everything was cloud-based. Everything was online.
Yeah, similar to us,
Even when we were a £20 million business, we didn't even have a router We had no physical infrastructure for IT, no data centers, no nothing. Make these things basic for yourself and make it easy. People just overcomplicate business so much. You start a business and you get excited and you're like, oh, that sofa's $5,000. Great. Get 2 of them. Yeah. Get a ping pong table, get a living wall. Yeah. Don't need all that stuff to start with. No, just go and make some money and then do it afterwards. And then get to that status point, because that's how people run out of cash. And it's just a bee I have in my bonnet at the moment. I just see so much spent at a very early stage. Yeah. Don't worry about it. You need to focus on cash at the beginning, not on profitability. Yeah. Leave your sofas, leave your ping pong table. You can go back and get it at another time. Yeah. Just get a decent coffee machine.
We'll get you sell a camping chair from Tesco.
That's right.
£1.99. Good to go.
Go to Glastonbury and steal a few on the way back up. That's
there'll be a few tents there as well.
Yeah, absolutely loads on that side. So,
which is good. Okay, all right, Andrew. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of our first episode of Discovering Leadership. How have you found it?
I mean, this is great. Have we started yet, or is it?
No, we have. But that to me is testament of a good podcast, mate, where you actually get to know the individual on a deeper level and really understand what makes them tick. And I think that's something that's come across fantastically well. Yeah. In this podcast, I certainly feel like I've got to know you, which is great.
I think from my side, look, I lean more into the entrepreneurial stuff now because that's the bigger part of my life. But FM is what made me, right? Of
course, yeah.
FM, I will always hold dear. I love being the chair of the IWFM. I feel we're making some progress in some real areas, and IWFM in particular, I focus really hard on the commercial elements. We're going to be in a surplus 2 years in a row, which the Institute hasn't done for like 7 years. Yep. So we're making real strides forward and using that entrepreneurial prowess to put back towards the sector. Yeah. So, I love it. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and do things like this. But yeah, FM is where my heart is. I really believe in it. I would absolutely advocate for my daughter to come into the sector and try and be an engineer, and my son as well. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. And I appreciate you telling the story of FM, because we need to do more podcasts and we need to encourage the 20-year-olds, I was talking to this morning, to come in and do it. So thank you very much for having me on.
Fine. Well, listen, Andrew, to be fair, the great thing about the Facilities Management Exchange is that you don't only have to come on once.
Okay.
We have a panel podcast as well, and we focus in on specific subjects across the industry. Feel free to come and join us again. Maybe we'll do something around ESG. Maybe we'll do something specific on something that we could get you involved in, and you can join us again, mate. It'd be great to have you.
I'll bring you some dead trees and we can talk about ESG.
Good. I did want to ask anyway, do you have a lake or a river going through the property?
Yeah.
Any fishing?
Well, no, there are fish in it. So where it's a nature reserve I have on the side of the land that we have, but there's a naturally spring-fed pond that comes out the ground. Nothing feeds it; it just comes out the ground. There are fish in there, 4 different types of fish.
Oh, what type of fish got
there? I couldn't even tell you, but we never caught them. Yeah. And I'm actually, one of the things we haven't talked about.
Come and drop line in?
No, because I'm actually phobic of fish. That's the final. That's what we're going to end on. If you gave me a cod to hold in Tesco, I'd probably throw it at you and run away crying. Really? I really don't like the way. And as a kid, I used to go fishing. Yeah. And if I ever caught a fish, I wasn't able to take it off the hook because I wasn't able to touch it. So I had to go fishing with somebody else who could take it off. So we love looking at the fish. It's interesting when we have egret birds. In this nature reserve, we have amazing animals in there that is completely undisturbed. And we have camera traps and stuff that you can see that's going off. It is absolutely stunning. But when you watch like an enormous, like one of those big birds that will just go in and take fish out and fly off again, it's amazing. And the egrets and stuff are back because they've... But yeah, in my house, I have swift boxes, we have house martins, we have swallows, we have absolutely everything. We got stables and acreage and paddocks and all sorts.
So basically Dr. Dolittle then, really?
Pretty much so, yeah. And if I start talking to the animals, that's when it's going to be enough. I need to stop doing
I think we need to get you your own theme tune, mate, That's what we need, a theme tune to sort it out,
But no, thanks very much. It was great to chat.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Andrew. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of the first iteration of Discovering Leadership. I hope that you enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed chatting to Andrew. It's been fantastic getting to know him. And I'm sure that you learned some very interesting facets about his career, how he started, Pareto. And I'm sure that if you ever wanted to reach out, I know you do a bit of mentoring, I'm sure he wouldn't mind a message and he'd be more than happy to come back. But as ever, that brings us to the end. We must end at some time, guys. But as ever, if you can't be good, be bad. Bye-bye.